Well, good afternoon, class. Today is June 28th, and I have good news and bad news to report. And usually, if this was a face-to-face class, I would ask if you guys want the good news or the bad news first, but I can't do that here unless I did a survey, and that would take a while. So we're just going to give you the good news. The good news is the DHS has air conditioning again. The little semi-truck trailer window air conditioning unit was off this morning when I got there, and sure enough, one of the chillers was working, and it was not so hot in the DHS. So that's good news to report. The bad news is, and this isn't really that bad of news. If you remember last time I said my dog Siggy was whining because he could see my neighbors smoking and he wanted some of the pork. Well, the pork turned out wonderfully, but you know how sometimes the pork it gets wrapped with a little twine string type thing to keep it all contained? Well, they took the string off and went to go cut up the meat. Well, the little string twine ball was on the ground, and sure enough, Siggy didn't realize that was not food, so he ran over and ate it. So normally, if he eats stuff, he gets into chicken wings occasionally, which are not, his stomach's pretty solid, but the little twine had little square loops that he could have gotten caught on. So I flipped out a little bit, but then I called the rest of the animal 24-hour emergency clinic, and they said as long as he can eat and drink, there's no blockage. And he ate and drank that night, so he's fine. The only ill effect he had was that he had a little diarrhea the next day, so which is unpleasant, but not life-threatening. So that was the good news. I guess the bad news is good news, is that was 2 days ago, and he's fine. He's doing fine. So, all right. Well. On Monday, as I mentioned in the email, you guys have your exam coming up, and I've put the review guide on the online classroom, so that's for exam number 1. It just kind of tells you what it is. The exam is going to be 50 questions, 40 will be multiple choice, 10 will be true-false. It'll be online, it'll be under the quiz section of D2L, or the online classroom, but it'll be an exam. It's worth 150 points, so 50 questions, 150 points, so each question is worth 3 points. It should be evenly distributed among the chapters. I mean, it might be like 7 from one chapter, 8 from another, but it's not going to be like I'm going to have, 15 questions from chapter 3 or something like that. But if you have questions about the exam, you can email me, but I'd rather you post them to the discussion board. I've pasted a discussion board. Rather than have a discussion topic this week, I've made a discussion board just for test questions. So then I can answer them and everyone else can see the answers. So far I hadn't seen any questions when I checked this afternoon, but that doesn't mean there aren't now that I'm recording this. So this will be good. Originally I was going to have it today and Friday, so today and tomorrow. But I think tomorrow, Monday and Tuesday will be fine. You'll have, like I said, a 48-hour window to do the exam. It's 120 minutes. You can use any materials that you have, my PowerPoints. You could watch my videos, the book, obviously, whatever you can find on Google. Usually in my class, I allow open notes, but the only thing I don't allow is, iPads, any electronic devices, laptops, iPads, phones, because I could have, people that don't have those things at a disadvantage. But there's no way I can check for that, obviously, online. So use whatever you want on the exam. And like I say, if you have questions, you can email me, but I'll respond to it in the discussion board, so write your questions in the discussion board. Alright, so today we're going to talk about the world beyond words, which is nonverbals. So let me get that up here so I can... And I noticed that, I'm watching myself while I'm doing the talk now, but now I'm actually looking at my PowerPoint, so I don't exactly know what I'm doing as much when we switch to this, so that's that. Also, these are still available on D2L. I'll put Chapter 6's information on there, but I'll post the video tomorrow just so it's not too much video overload. So, last week's activity, make sure you're posting that to the discussion board. There will not be an assignment from this week, or from this module, or module number 6, so don't worry about those. The assignments for these 2 days is just to study for the exam, which is on Monday and Tuesday. Alright, nonverbal is all aspects of communication other than words. So anything, it doesn't mean that's not spoken or noise, because raising your voice even if you don't understand the words being said, you can tell somebody's angry. Now there might be a context to it, but if somebody yells at you in German, you could. Sometimes I might watch in my face-to-face class. I might watch a Hitler speech. You don't know what he's saying, but you do know he's upset and getting well, not really upset, but he's getting aggressive. So, so anything that's not a word is nonverbals. So there's a lot of differences between there's similarities between nonverbals and verbals, and then there's differences. Let's talk about some of the similarities first. Nonverbals tends to be a lot more unintentional. You don't really just, I mean, you can talk to yourself. You can talk to yourself in your sleep, but you don't just generally randomly communicate things via words that you don't mean to. I mean, sometimes you think things you don't intend to, but there's a lot more unintentional communication via nonverbals. And it doesn't stop. Words stop and start. So, but like I said, I guess I'm supposed to talk about similarities, aren't I? So, there can be intentional and unintentional verbals and nonverbals, but for the most part, nonverbals tend to be more unintentional. Nonverbals also reflect culture, like verbals do. Certain symbols we have in this culture are different from things in other cultures. When I was in Australia in high school, when we got a teacher exchange, certain things that I would communicate with both my clothing and the way I interacted didn't quite communicate quite correctly because they had a different culture. So there's rules about it. It's symbolic and it reflects culture. So those are some similarities between verbals and nonverbals. Now let's talk about some differences. Nonverbals tend to be more believable. We don't think you can lie as much with nonverbals. Now you can do that, but it's a lot more difficult. Nonverbal communication is multi-channel. You can do it with your hands, you can do it with your clothing. Yesterday or last time I was recording my video, I wasn't wearing a dress shirt when I was just sitting around the house, but I put one on because I wanted to wear just a little nicer for the video because it's on there forever. So there's multiple channels, and it's continuous. That's the big thing. Words, verbals tend to stop and start. You have a sentence, subject, predicate, that sort of thing. Whereas nonverbals are continuous. I'm always communicating things nonverbally, whether you can never stop communicating nonverbally, or you don't really stop. I mean, you can stop, but it's a lot more difficult. So it's more continuous. So that's the similarities and differences between verbals and nonverbals. So one of the characteristics of nonverbals is that it can supplement or it can replace verbal communication. So, for example, let's say you can, I can give you the OK sign. I hope you can see that, even though I can't see the video. But you can give the OK sign, or you can say OK. So that's when it's replacing it. Or I could say OK and give you the OK sign. So I can either supplement, so give both, or I can just say give the OK sign, and that would be replacing it. Nonverbals tend to regulate. We talk with our hands, that sort of thing. I'm doing it even though there's no one. I guess you can't see me, but even when I'm kind of practicing this, I probably communicate with my hands a little bit. There's a lot of discussion about ways nonverbals communicate power. Distance, how far you are away from superiors and inferiors, that sort of thing. Nonverbals communicate a lot with liking. You tend to interact more nonverbally with people you like than people you don't like. So that's nonverbals communicate a lot. Okay, so this slide, this is slide number 7. I have a couple of activities to do. One I do is with movies, where I have people watch a scene from a movie that isn't exactly obscure, but hopefully they haven't seen a lot. And then without the sound, and I say, what's going on here? And then that's the nonverbal. And then I add the sound. Which I mentioned that there is sounds that can still be nonverbals, but for the most part, it's a lot of words. So I add the sound, and then I say, well, what's going on here? A scene that I usually like to show is the greatest movie of all time, in case you're wondering, The Princess Bride. I show a scene from that and the way they're interacting in the scene, and if you have this movie, you can watch this without sound, so you can simulate this. The Sicilian and I guess the Dread Pirate Robert 2 becomes Wesley, where they're, discussing who's going to take the princess away. If you don't know this movie, then this doesn't make any sense. But you could use any scene, but when they're discussing, I talk about what the relationship is, what they're talking about, without the sound, and then I add the sound, and they have a completely different perception of what's going on. So yeah. So you can do that. That's the activity I usually do right with this slide. So one of the things the book talks about, the book talks about a lot more than I can talk about here. They've got sections on all these. And the types of nonverbals are kinesics, haptics, physical appearance, artifacts, environmental factors. One thing I'll talk about here is artifacts. Artifacts are things you own. Think about all the things you have in your possession that communicate about you. What kind? You think about. Usually, at this point, I try to ask people what kind of car they think I drive, and it's an Escape, in case you're wondering, and what that communicates about me. And then I don't think I mentioned that I'm into cycling, and so they usually think it must have a bike rack on the back, which it does, in fact, and what those things communicate about me. So, the things you own communicate a lot. So that's the one thing I'll talk about with that slide. But some other types, personal space, how much space you give people. Men tend to get more space than women. People in positions of power tend to get more space, that sort of thing. Chronemics, time, the way you communicate, whether you show up on time. Today I got kind of in trouble with my job because I was only working a half day with the DHS, and I was working 4 or 5 hours, but my supervisor thought that I was going to come in at 9. Well, she thought I was going to come at 7:30, but I don't particularly like dodging Oklahoma City traffic. But I came in at 11, so I was going to come in 11 to 4, 11 to 3, and she thought I was coming in 7:30 to 11:30. Well, that doesn't really matter when I come in and do my work, but we had a meeting at 10 o'clock, and she thought I was going to be at their meeting. Unfortunately, I think most people weren't at the meeting, and but I would have actually enjoyed it. So we did a civil rights seminar that we had to do, but I communicated a lot via time that I showed up, and I thought I communicated more. I got there at 10:45, and I realized that I had missed this meeting, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's going to be really upset. Sure enough, she wasn't upset, which I was a little surprised with. But I felt like I communicated a lot with the time, and she didn't think I communicated as much. But showing up on time, being on time or being late, there's the phrase "fashion late" when you go to a party. You never go to a party before 11:30. You go show up at 10, it's like you don't have anything to do. It's 11:30, I had plenty of things to do, but I decided to show up here. Or maybe you show up, at 12:30 or 1, then you had another party to go to. I've done that with Super Bowl parties. But anyway, paralanguage is silence. So then once again, nonverbals can, it's just pure silence can be communicated. So that's some stuff to talk about. All right, once again, as usual, your book gives you a pep talk about how to improve your nonverbals, monitor your nonverbal communication, and interpret others' nonverbal communication attentively. So when people communicate things nonverbally, they may not actually mean what they're communicating. So understand that the way that people communicate nonverbally, as well as verbally, is very personal, and there's contextual issues, and maybe don't interpret them exactly as you would intend. So, be thinking about how you interpret them may not be accurate to what they really mean. So, that's some guidelines the book gives you for improving nonverbals. All right, so next time, which will be tomorrow, and I don't work at the DHS tomorrow, so I may post it bright and early. And I don't know how it's going to work because I've never... I've always posted these in the evenings, except I think I did it on Saturday. But I'll post it pretty early tomorrow because I've already got it all collected. But it's beyond listening. So listening is the way you perceive others. That's what we talked about earlier in the semester. The communication circle. There's the sender and then the receiver. This is about the receiving part of it and how you become a receiver and how you should interact as a receiver. So that's next time. Remember, the exam is Monday and Tuesday. You can do it anytime during that from 8 a.m. on, I guess I could make it 12:01 a.m. on Monday if I really wanted, but I don't think anyone's going to take it at 3 o'clock in the morning. Maybe you would, I don't know. But until Tuesday at midnight. And it'll actually be 11:59 because I always worry on the online classroom if I make it midnight, is I can make it noon, so I just make it 11:59. So if you feel cheated out of a minute, you'll just have to deal with that. So that's all I have. I've talked about everything I wanted to. I hope you do well in the exam. This video is longer than I expected it to be, but I guess I have a lot to say about nonverbals. One of my community members at OU will be very pleased with that because she's really into nonverbals. But hope you have a good 12 hours until I post another video. And good luck studying for the exam. Email me with questions, although better for you to put it on a discussion board. There won't be an assignment associated with Module 6 either, so have a good day. Bye.